What's going on, everybody? This is James with jamesyoungphotography.com. And in today's Lightroom breakdown, this is the final edit that we are going for, and this is the straight out of camera. Now, before we go into the step-by-step process, I just want to give you a reminder that you can actually download this raw file for free, which means you can actually follow along step by step and get this exact result. And that means you can use those techniques on your photos moving forward. Or let's say this photo inspired you to go in a totally different direction. You can still download that raw file and cook with this raw file. And if you decide to edit with me, feel free to tag me in some sort of post so I can see it and I can repost it and we can have fun with that as well. Well, no more wasting any time. Let's get into this edit breakdown. Let's go ahead and click reset. And step one is going to be analyzing my composition. And I get started with that by clicking on my crop tool. You can also press R on your keyboard if you're real fancy like that, but I usually just click the crop tool. Now, one of my favorite features of the crop tool and one of the reasons why I use it to analyze my composition is because I like to have these composition grids. This helps me make sure that my lines are straight. It also helps me make sure that I'm using good composition techniques in my photography work. So I'm going to go over to the top left corner and I'm going to crop this image because I want it to be a little bit tighter on my subject. And I want my subjects to come closer to this intersecting grid line. And I like this composition just a little bit more because it draws a little bit more attention to the subject and a little bit less attention to the environment. This is still an okay picture. I just think that this is a more compelling photograph. Now, once my composition is set, I start experimenting with my presets. In Lightroom Classic, you can have a setting where if you hover over, you can actually see what the preset is going to do. And I can already tell right off the bat, that looks terrible. So I'm not going to use the high contrast. I'm going to go with the low contrast for sure. And that would make sense because Moody O2 low contrast was made with shooting in harsher light situations in mind, like shooting into the direct sun like we have here. Now, after I apply my preset, the next thing I'm going to start thinking about is the overall color tone of this photo. Now, I'm pretty close to what I want, but I know I want this image to be a little bit warmer once we're done with the edit. So that means I'm going to go to the color temperature slider here, and I'm going to click and drag this a little bit to the right to make it a little bit more warm. And we're gonna land at about 5,800 with this photo. This was shot during sunset, and I really want to emphasize those warm tones and really make this romantic and dreamy. And a lot of that is expressed through the warmth of the color tone, and that's largely affected by the color temperature slider in the white balance section. Now, after I have my color balance situated, I want to start thinking about the overall contrast of the photo. Now, this preset has definitely got me started in the right direction with the low contrast because we have a little bit more of a harsh lighting situation. But I want to bring up some of these highlights just a little bit, just to emphasize some of the contrast in some of the areas that can be a little bit brighter. So we're going to go to the highlight slider and bring those up to about 42. Wonderful. And the idea here is to play with the slider until you get the highlights to the brightness that you like them. And with my whites, I'm going to do the same. Those are the brightest section of the photo. I'm going to bring those up to right about 0, right at neutral. And that's the look that we're going for with the highlights and our whites. Now, with our shadows and our highlights, you can see that this photo was taken with the couple facing away from the sun, and a lot of the bride's face is in shadow here. So we're going to let that look stay emphasized while still opening up the blacks a little bit. And we'll do that by bringing this black slider up from 36, and we'll go for, on this image, about plus 61. Now, I like where this is going, but one thing I've noticed is because we cranked up our white balance a little bit, we're going to want to compensate for that a little bit in our color mixer or in our HSL panel. Now, I want this edit to still maintain a really golden kind of quality to express the idea that this was taken at sunset and really kind of give it that romantic feel. But I don't want their skin tones to be like extremely orange. So we do that by dialing into the orange color on the color mixer and our HSL here, hue, saturation, and luminance. I'm going to bring the saturation down on the orange just a little bit. This is a great little tip for skin. And like I said, just a little bit, like maybe minus 20. And if I press Command Z or Control Z, yeah, I was at minus 15 and I just took it down to minus 20. And that just kind of takes that orangish kind of hue down just a little bit while still maintaining kind of that golden quality. Now from here, my actual edit is pretty close to finish. I'm going to add a small finishing touch here, and that's going to take place in the detail section here underneath sharpening. Now in the preset, it's already set to 70, but the one thing I do want to do is adjust my masking. And if I click and drag to the right and to the left, it kind of doesn't seem like masking is doing anything. But if you press and hold Option on your keyboard, and if you're on PC, that's Alt on your keyboard, and then you click and drag, all of a sudden crazy things start happening. You're going to start clicking and dragging, and certain things are black, certain things are white, certain things are kind of gray, and a little bit in between. What's happening here? What's happening here is this is a visual representation of the sharpening that's going to happen once you finish making your adjustment, meaning it's showing you what the mask is going to do. Everything that is white equals getting sharp. Everything that is black equals not getting sharp. So how can we use this? Well, we want to use the sharpening in a way that emphasizes our photo. So that means we're going to slide it and make sure that we're only going to sharpen the sections of the photo that we want it to sharpen, which means we don't really want it to sharpen much of the background. So I'm going to slide it to about plus 52 is great. And that means the sharpening effect is really only going to take place on the subject of the photo, meaning our couple right here and kind of around the environment a little, but the blurry background is going to stay nice and soft and it's not going to experience that sharpening effect. It's subtle, but it's one of those little things that I think is a nice little touch. And here we go. I'm going to press backslash on my keyboard. That's our before, and bam, that is our after. That's the edit. I like it. I think this is sweet. I hope that you downloaded the raw file. I hope you had a good time editing with me. I hope you learned something today. And if you downloaded the raw file and took this in a totally different direction, I would love to see the direction that you took it in. Well, again, I'm James Young with JamesYoungPhotography.com, and I will see you in the next tutorial.